Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Katie Snap here.
And Carol White.
I think we're just about to get started. We've got a guest, but we're going to introduce her on slide number 2. So we're going to keep her in the quiet, dark corner for a moment. You just stay over there.
She's in the green room.
Stay over there,
stay and drink
guest.
my wine.
Yes. She's getting low on wine, so we'll give her a little more at slide 4. Okay.
She has to get all the way to slide 4 to get there.
Well, we welcome those of you that are joining us. I'm Katie Snap, and Carol White is my partner in crime. We're here from the Carol White recording studio in downtown Burbank. And the webinar tonight is about an empowerment that comes naturally from you as a woman. It's titled The Empowered Woman's Must-Do Assignment. And you're going to find out before the end of this hour why we call it a must-do assignment. But it's looking for the you that tells your story.
And it's a tiny training with what kind of results, Katie?
Big results, Carol.
Big results.
Big results.
Yes.
Yes, we're big fans of doing things in little pieces. Unless you're going to a retreat in some beautiful spot where you want to make it a hefty training for days and days at a time. We think that regular training in small pieces is much more feasible for women. It's more practical, and that's really what we create all of our trainings around so that you can easily digest it.
Well, and we are calling this a wine webinar.
And it's Wednesday, but many of you are listening on the go. Some of you are tuned in. Some of you will be tuning in later as the recorded one. So just know that you won't be missing anything if you're not here live. We will be letting you know what the chat questions and answers are as we go along.
The only thing you're missing really is wine.
Well,
so
that's a do-it-yourself thing.
Grab a glass of wine and listen in. Tonight, we are drinking...
Oh, what is it, Carol?
We are drinking Middle Sister Rebel Red, a California red table wine. And I think it's lovely, don't you all?
It's quite lovely.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Let's introduce this person over here. Come on out of the dark corner, Lisa. You can sit down, put those headphones on. I want to introduce a good friend of ours, a good friend of the studios. Her name is Lisa Adkins, and she lives here in our town. We're actually recording from the Southwest, the southwestern burb of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
I'll give you a little bit of background as to Lisa, because as you listen to her add what she's learned about her story and what she brings to the table, you'll start to see that she's not much different than a lot of us, although in recent years, she's really ramped it up and has done some incredible things. She was a part of our leadership retreat for women a couple of years ago. And through that process, I think we will say that she had some personal growth. She certainly had some things that she shared with us.
You fixed me.
I'm so proud of us for doing that. I will take complete credit. Not at all.
Not at all. But I do want to say that Lisa is here as a guest because she has been through this workshop and she's gone through some of this programming. So we asked her to come and talk about her experience through it.
So here's a short blurb on Lisa. She serves as the director of Fat Pipe Albuquerque, a collaborative space for software developers, cybersecurity, and digital media startups, and high-tech entrepreneurs. She's also director of the Bioscience Center, an incubator accelerator for startups in biotech and life sciences. Via these positions, and as a result of her own challenging entrepreneurial background, Lisa has become an outspoken advocate for small businesses in New Mexico and a coach and mentor to many aspiring entrepreneurs. Oh my gosh. You exhaust me just by
She's fabulous.
Thinking about everything that you've done, but
yes.
So thank you. Do you want to say a couple of words of intro?
No, I'm really happy to be here and share my story and my experience with your workshop. It was wonderful. It was great.
Oh, good. Well, this is a piece of it, and we know that women can benefit from it, and what Carol and I love doing is sharing it. So thanks for being here. Now, those of you that are following along live and on a computer, and I know that's not everybody, but those are following along live and on a computer, will see this chat icon occasionally, and we'll certainly mention it if you're not on a computer. When you see this icon, that's when you can start typing in some answers. You can easily find the chat box in the corner, and we can see some folks are saying hi and checking in, and good to know. And Carol is monitoring the chat box, the private chat box, the public one, as well as emails that come in live. Okay, so the Empowered Woman's must-do assignment, finding the you that tells your story. Why would we even say that this assignment is a must-do? Because that's really kind of putting ourselves out there.
It just is. It just is. And I'm going to kind of leave this with Lisa and say, what about it was a must-do for you? Or what growth did you have from doing the assignment? And we'll tell them more about the assignment in a minute.
I don't think that a woman necessarily ever thinks about going back and looking at her failures per se to figure out, why it's so important and why it tells your story and how you can grow from it. I mean, failures are lessons. They're not things that you need to continue beating yourself up over. And I think I did that for a really long time. And so coming to your workshop was a turning point for me, and I continue to have turning points. So I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not afraid to talk about it, and I don't hold any anger like I did for so long.
Yay.
Yeah.
It feels better, doesn't it?
Yeah, feels better.
There's so much to learn just as humans, not just women, but it's humans around self-development and self-awareness. I believe that this is a must-do because I look at professional development and personal development, so much overlap there. As a maintenance issue, you gotta keep doing it. You just gotta keep doing it. And what you learned 2 years ago is not necessarily what will come up in this exercise a year from now. So keep that in mind. One way that I look at it is the way that life is ups and downs. And this is actually what we're going to do is we're going to look at some ups and some downs. We're going to have you with the handout that we've sent to you, and there's no rocket science in the handout. It's simply just a template for you, although I love rocket science.
You are a rocket
I love
scientist.
rocket science. This one is not. It's just a template for you to write down some of the ups and the downs. We'll step you through that. My quote is, life is full of ups and downs. The trick is to relish the ups, learn from the downs, and smile during both.
And Katie's really good at that.
At smiling?
She keeps us laughing.
Unless there's something in my teeth. Okay, we're going to turn your history into your legacy. Lisa, when you said, it's so easy to focus on our failures, I think we come from one of two different seeds. It's either we think, oh my God, I don't even want to talk about what I've done is failure. I just want to just completely roll over it. Or we grasp onto it and we're mortified by it and we beat ourselves up over it. We're going to have women look into what some of those, and failures is a strong word. We're going to have you look into what some of those downs are, whether they were a failure that was caused by you or not. It doesn't really matter. In fact, the advanced move is to look at those failures and address the fact that it's probably not something you did. There were lots of other factors. But when you're in the middle of it, it sure feels like it's all you.
Right.
So we do challenge women with looking back on what those downs were and how they seem to feel like a failure. But when you are in retrospective, they are so enlightening. There's just this awe of, thank God was behind me. And it felt like crap to do it, but look at what I learned.
Well, and I want to say something about this slide. We're going to turn your history into your legacy. And I like to say your her story.
I like that better because every time I see history, I think of hysterectomy.
And I think of...
Maybe that's what we're doing is we're eradicating your history from you, which is a hysterectomy.
Hysterectomy and giving you her story.
It's a hysterectomy.
So
here's where we're going.
Start with the roadmap.
Where are we going? It's real simple. There's maybe 4 steps, 4 major pieces of this that we're going to look at. The first one is a lifeline, and that's where we'll spend a good part of our time. The lifeline exercise involves 4 different pieces. Understanding chapters, we'll define that in just a moment. Understanding where it goes on your timeline, also called your lifeline. Swells, and what you've learned from those. And pits, and what you've learned from those. That's our nice way of saying the ups and the downs. The swells and the pits. Okay? Then we'll go from there. From there, you will have dug some stuff up. I will bet you, and sometimes it helps to have a girlfriend doing this with you, for those of you that are in a group of more than one going through this training, share with one another what you're hearing, because sometimes your best friends will identify for you what your strengths are and where your source of empowerment comes. That's the beauty of women. We'll then give you a chance to write a mantra, and you will be embroidering it onto a cape before the end of the hour.
You have to teach me how to embroider.
Yeah, there's machines that do that for you
Oh,
now.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You let me use glue and sparkles.
And the workshop, we did create capes for Barbie dolls. Did you use a Barbie doll or
No, mine was a little puppy. A little stuffed dog.
we
Like
did do that.
underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the way we got into that. That was fun.
That was fun.
And then we'll just leave you with something positive for going forward.
All right. And it looks like Lisa's
Lisa's
a little
low
low on wine. So
This is low. I'm doing pretty good with making mine last.
Thank you.
Katie didn't want to get drunk before this, but we're already into it. A little more?
Okay. Well, the first thing that happens as soon as I have a sip of alcohol is I get a hot flash. So
Oh, and
It's all right. It's already come and gone.
And you think you're really funny too.
yeah, one of those is worse than the others. By the end of this, you'll feel empowered from where you've been and how you best see that as a definition of your present. Carol, by the way, is getting over a little bit of a cold, so we may hear her
Apologies.
wheezing in the background just a little bit. That's okay, Carol. Our heart is with you. Okay, let's get right into it.
Okay.
Chat question.
Somebody chat.
Here,
No, I'm just kidding.
we've got some
If
questions
you
there.
had to do it all over again, would you
Would you chat?
do it differently? Do most of it differently? Do some of it differently? Or do it exactly the same?
Now, for the analytical people in the group that are saying, well, what do you mean by it?
Life.
Yeah, like who you are.
Yeah.
What's your answer to this one, Lisa?
I'd probably only do some of it differently. Certainly not all, not most. Maybe a little bit.
Katie?
I would do. Oh gosh, I think I'd do most of it differently.
Would you?
Well, isn't that? Can you feel when you're answering these questions how you're judging yourself?
Oh, yeah.
If I were to say I'd do it all total differently, doesn't your little mind tell yourself, well, are you saying that you were a failure?
Oh, I didn't hear that, but that's not what my mind said.
But I have there's these natural fears that we have, right?
Yeah.
And it, by saying you would do something differently somehow correlates to, are you saying you didn't do it right? I wouldn't say that at all. I love the way I got to where I am, but maybe if I knew what I knew now, I'd do some things differently. What about you, Carol?
So, well, let me take some of these chats. It all unfolded. This is from Barb. It all unfolded just like it should, so I could learn exactly what I needed to learn. And I have a philosophy quite like that. You know, I mean, there's somebody that can see my life for what it should be, and I really feel like I do it all exactly the same because of who I am and what I've done. I feel good about what I've done. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So.
and there's we see from Jessica, she said she'd do some of it differently as well, just like you, Lisa. So okay, let's go on
All
to
right.
an assignment. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you get out that piece of paper that we sent you.
Oh, yes. The blank one?
The blank one.
Yeah, we
It's not
sent
4 pages of blank. It's actually 5 pages. But it'll give you a bit of a template. And these are the 4 steps in the patterns in your lifeline. All right. First of all, identify the chapters. That is step number 1. Here's the way you do that. Ask yourself, what are the chapters of your life? Now, I caution you, don't overthink it. This is one of those that you want to say, okay, first I did this, then I did this, then I did this. But really, when you step back and you armchair it, or you're meeting somebody in an elevator and you were to give them the 5-minute rundown of your life, probably not even that, maybe 2 minutes, what would you say it really sticks out? And there will be those that are positive, and there are those that are negative. Okay. Need help? Let me give you some examples, and then you guys can jump in if you've got any examples of your chapters. Here are some of my chapters. Note when you do write these, you will probably come back and rewrite some of them later. That's why I say don't overthink it. As you start to process, you'll say, this is a little different than what I really thought it was. So that's completely normal. What came to me, first of all, when I first did this exercise was my dreamy youth years as a kid. I had a great idyllic family. We had a nice we were comfortable. We had nice pod. We were all together. The high school years were wonderful for me. For a lot of people, were they good for you, Carol?
I had nice pot in high school.
Oh, pot.
Just kidding.
P-O-D, Carol.
I heard that wrong completely.
I know. That's the wine. That's the wine listening.
That is the wine listening.
Lisa, how about your high school?
No, I didn't like high school. Wasn't great.
I find that to be more the answer from a lot of people is high school was brutal. It was painful. There were bullies. It was a period of. I'm not saying that mine was good because I was self-aware. I was completely oblivious to the world, and it wasn't because of pot. I was pretty square.
I was just kidding.
I know you're gonna wear that the rest of the hour. My parents went through a divorce. I'll talk about that in just a little bit in depth. No, not really. My first engineering job, an assignment in Albuquerque, relationships I kind of dropped in general. So your chapters can have those big kind of sense of, glob them all together. I was recruited into consulting. That's a great example of a chapter that was an up for me. And as we chart it out later, you'll notice I had no idea the significance of that when I went into it. You will have the same thing that happens to your chapters. So if you want to take a minute and jot down some of those on the chapter page while you're doing that. Carol or Lisa, you want to give us some insights into what maybe some of your chapters were so that they give us some ideas for the followers?
Lisa actually did her homework and wrote some down, so I'll let her go first.
Well, I was trying to remember, and you said, Katie, that these will change over time too. So, of course, I've had lots of good ups and downs, but the biggest down was my second marriage, the starting of a business. That was actually an up. And then the decline into a divorce and losing my business because of it.
So those two things were tied together.
Yeah. So it started out good and it ended badly. And it ended so badly that it affected me for years. I let it affect me for years.
Yeah. Well, and I think all of us who have been through a divorce would probably put that into one of our pits. I can't imagine that would be as well. Although looking back now, I can say, good riddance. I'm glad
there's a relief to it.
And there was a relief at the time, but it's a hard thing to go through, and you have kids and all sorts of things, so very difficult.
Are there chapters that you look at that ended up being pits? I mean, how many of them that ended up being pits really did start off as a swell? They started off as I'm so excited about this. I guess a death in a family or a divorce probably wouldn't start off that way.
Oh, well, my second marriage, the one I was referring to that ended into the divorce that ended so badly. I mean, it was great. It was a swell in the beginning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have married him.
Right.
We started a great business together, and it was my life, and I loved it. Yeah, it was great. It was a good part of my life.
One huge thing that I've learned from understanding the pits and the swells, and we're all going to see this when you see the ups and downs, is how predictable ups and downs are, and how powerful it can be to understand that a down, when you're in the middle of it, look at it as if you're in the future looking back at it. Then it becomes a temporary thing. One of the characteristics of a pit is that feeling of this is the longest down in the world, or I'll never get better from this,
right,
or I'll never recover. I have a close friend whose husband was killed in a tragic bicycle accident when he was 41. And she was 41 too. And she's probably, it's been maybe 12 or 13 years. And she for years was in a depression. Now I know that's a pretty serious pit. And I don't know how I would react. I know that, those times when I've tried to kill my husband and he didn't die, but that's not even funny. She actually walks around now. You can see her posture. Her posture changed during those years because it took her so long to get out of that low. But she has said out loud, I don't mean this to be so depressing, but she has said out loud so many times during those first 5 or 6 or 7 years, and went on to many, many, many years where she said this, I'll never recover. I'll never be better. Things will never change. And I just wanted to take her by the shoulders and say, yeah, you're going to have a life. You will have a life. It's almost the last thing you want to hear when you're in a pit.
Well, and can I just put a quick plug in here for Katie's new book, Brave Transitions, because it's about looking at the same things we're going to look at today, which is those pits and swells, and realizing how really powerful and empowered you are as a woman by bringing yourself through those. And once you bring yourself through those, you understand where your strength is. And so, yeah, and always stay in the positive when you're talking to yourself or to anybody else. It gets you through it a whole lot faster.
It does get you through it.
All right, keep going.
Okay, so that should have given you some chance to write down your chapters. Here's how you put it on a timeline. Isn't that interesting? It's just a line. And we did give you that too on the handout.
That's right.
No extra charge. All right. Now you write them on, and again, if you're analytical and you're worried about making it right, just kind of let that go. Here's mine as a perfect example. And when I wrote them down, I actually kind of put the pits down on the bottom and the swells kind of on the top, because what you're going to do is kind of give it a little bit of a lifeline to it. Where are the ups and the downs, and relationships in general had kind of an ups and downs.
There was a little rocky point there for you, Katie.
Yeah. Is he right? Is he not? Is he Mr. Right? Is he Mr. Wrong? And there were way too many. And in fact, that's one of the areas that relationships in general I look back at, and I just, well, we're going to talk about that. Because I'm going to show you. I was not good at it. And I was lucky enough to have really great boyfriends almost all the time. And of course, now I'm lucky to have
the creep or what?
Yeah, not the guy I'm married to now, who is the catch of the century.
Right.
But yeah, it was like you, Lisa. It was what seemed like an idyllic, young, happy family with 2 little daughters, and that my journal said I can't imagine being happier. And, it changed.
Wow.
But everyone knows that story, really.
Yes, we do. Anybody who's been through a divorce knows that story, because you start very happy and excited about all sorts of things.
It's dangerous how happy you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It makes you a little, I don't know, unrealistic.
Maybe.
That's okay.
This is therapeutic. Okay.
Enough about you.
Enough about more about me again. Let's go on to step 3, identifying the swells. In your handout, there is a chart that looks like this. It's rather blank. The chapter is not written in there, but that's where the chapters go. So you will use your handout for this, and I'm going to show you an example in just a little bit, but you're going to do this both for the swells and for the pits. Now let's just step through the chart for a moment. You will take any one of those chapters, and where the chapter word is, write whatever that chapter is. Think about a swell that you guys have, because I might...
Can I move on?
You want to go
just to show them?
All right, let's look at both swells and pits, because I do have an example of the pits. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You will put the chapter on the left. Then I'd like you to think about, here's a task. What was that chapter marked by? Okay. My parents' divorce was marked by adjustment and being different. I personally find that the chapters in my life that were that long ago didn't have as much of an impact, or I'm delusional to it, as the ones that were my early adulthood. Do you guys think the same thing about your past?
I think very much. Kids are pretty into themselves. They're
resilient,
and so maybe that's why. And I mean, you probably had some, cry your eyes out times at that point too. So, and maybe you're just not remembering it.
13, I think. And then when I went through a divorce, my kids were 8 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like 8 and 6. And I remember Sophie, my youngest one, her question when we told her her dad and I were getting divorced, her question was, will our phone number change?
Aw.
She thought it was really kind of funny, but she's a super, super resilient kid, and she was also too young. Yeah.
Right.
So it's more that what's happened since then that's more of an effect on us, I think.
Right.
I want to just dig into a little bit of this so that you can hear an example of what should come out for you as you're listening and jotting down your pits or your swells. My first engineering job was, I was obviously a trained professional and working in an industry, in the defense industry, where I had a pretty good level of authority as an engineer, right? I don't think I knew that. It's kind of like the corollary statement of youth is wasted on the young. A good job is wasted on the
Young.
clueless. And I enjoyed it and I liked it, but I also don't think I took the responsibility as seriously enough where I showed the integrity of really taking care of the technical decisions that I had to make. And people probably knew it because they probably say, oh, she's just 22. My assignment in Albuquerque, I showed bad choices in relationships after I got here. That was shortly after that I met my first husband. But there were a series of just bad decisions in relationships that I think reflected an indication of my self-worth.
Oh.
Like if a guy liked me, then he was worthy of getting my likeness back.
Yeah. We do that, don't we?
It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Just because he likes you doesn't mean you have to like him.
I know.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't want to be mean.
I feel like I'm the queen of bad relationships.
Really?
Oh.
Still, though?
Well, hopefully not. We'll see.
Okay.
Lisa's single right now. This is actually a dating webinar for you. Sorry, it's only girls.
It's only
Well,
women,
we could promote it to men's. Any other examples that you guys would have?
Do you
Pits
have
or
any?
swells?
I'm trying to think of anything that I have, because I did my timeline in front of everybody at the workshop, and I can't remember too many of the pits. Oh, losing my restaurants. So I walked away from 3 restaurants, and that was absolutely, it's all I'd ever done. For 20 years, I owned restaurants. And so when I walked away from that, that was huge. And that was one of those, you just know God's in your corner because it's got to work out. And it did. But that was a huge change in my life and very hard. I wish I had your book, Brave Transitions, to get through it, you know? So
One of my swells was the birth of my son to my first husband who I wanted to divorce.
Oh.
So it was literally immaculate conception.
He was born when you were going through the divorce or wanting to go?
I had already asked for a separation.
Wow.
And I guess we had a night of goodbye sex and I got pregnant.
Oh, gosh.
And I never wanted kids.
Interesting.
I had been the breadwinner for our family. I was the one working. I couldn't imagine having a child and having to take care of it. So, but the swell was that, boy, when he was born, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
It's a life changer.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, there's an example of something that happens to you overnight, instantaneously.
Yeah.
We're talking about conception versus contraception. Instantaneously, and it kind of hits you in the side of the head.
Yeah.
I use the word for a lot of these pits and swells, mostly pits, because my divorce was this way. I use the word disoriented. It's the reaction that I have to change. We see a lot of people that have reactions to change that they disengage, or they become disillusioned, or they become angry, and sometimes they just accept it and they're very good at going through it. What I have learned about going through the pits and the swells, the pits in particular, is if I can have action, I can get through it. If I can have action, I can get through it. And that's a little insight into where we're going with this, because that tells me something about a strength. Okay, so we have you talking about these pits and the swells because we want you to identify in your greatest lesson learned, where is the message in there? Where is a pattern? Where is a strength? If I were to sit next to you and look at your charts and you were to go through them with me, what would be my observation about a trend in your strength, or a pattern, or a flavor, or a style? That will eventually become your mantra in this exercise. So go on forward and let's take some inventory. Here's a chat question. When you look at who you are now, what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of? Now, we have some answers to this already because we had some strategists answer it ahead of time, but those of you that are chattable or want to send us a text, you're welcome to do that.
So one of them is trusting my instincts.
Go to the next chart. We've got some of these on a chart. Advance. Okay. Now, I realize this is small text, but...
And we're not going to go over all of it.
We're going to go over word
Katie?
for word.
Katie?
Just scan this, and if you're listening without the benefit of the chart in front of you, there are probably 12 different responses that we received for this. Many of them. Here's the first one. I'm going to read 3 of them. Overcoming personal obstacles to achieve accomplishments. I love the self insight in that. Second one, my children, blah, blah, blah. Third, my choice, ratings my kids, blah, blah, blah. Fourth, my daughter, blah, blah, blah. My husband, my relationship, my children, what my children have done. Now I'm gonna beat up the skirt strategist that did that for just a little bit. And it sounds like a very undiplomatic thing to do. But I want you to think about how you put your best foot forward in the language of who you are versus other people that you've affected. All right. In your area of empowerment, you can't draw from what you've left behind as a legacy if it's your child or a husband or a relationship that had 2 or 3 or 4 of you involved. You draw from what you did and who you are. Now, I am in no means saying that raising children well is not important. I'm by no means saying that having a great relationship with your husband is not important. It is an indication of you working on something and being aware. But I want to hear about you working on something and being aware. I want to hear about something that's more the source of that than what you're talking about the result of that. See the difference?
Yes. And Barb says she says swinging with change. And I think
we
that's
don't
great.
promote swinging on this. But okay, Barb.
Come on.
Speak for yourself, Katie.
That's right.
Well, we could take a whole new turn with the pits and the swells here. So if you were to write some of those things down that were, your answers to the question now, I would say let's tweak your answers a bit. Let me set you up a little more, because that first question is a bit of a setup. Here's how I would rephrase it so that we got more of a focused answer out of you. And that is, what are you most proud of? And now it has to be something that is about you. Because you have this in your answer, consider how you articulate it when you are presenting yourself. Now, we know that, Lisa, have you ever had a tough time making yourself presentable in such a way where people took you seriously?
Are you talking about her
Business.
I know, features or
she dresses very well.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And she's a swinger, so she's got that going for her. But if you were to go into a room of, you're in a male-based world, pretty much, aren't you? How do you present yourself in such a way where they take you seriously, or you get the oomph behind what you need to be listened to?
It's hard. I don't know if I always do it right, but I go in with a good, strong attitude. I tell myself that I'm in charge here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can do this. I don't think I have that much of a problem anymore. Maybe in the past, but not anymore.
This is where I think we evolve so much. Carol, you're in situations where you're male-based workplaces a lot. You spend a lot of time at the legislature.
Mm-hmm. That's brutal. I experienced that last week. Yeah. Wow.
It is a little
to be a woman up there.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have lots of female legislators. So I really don't. I'm always, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but I'm always speaking on behalf of people that I truly feel for. And so I have no problem getting in somebody's face. I have no problem speaking on behalf of them because I know what it's like to be them. Mm-hmm. And in my case, I advocate for small businesses and restaurants. So now you can look at what you've done to when you're in those challenging situations, because those can turn into pits, right? Where have you drawn from your pits in the past? And I don't want to gloss over swells, because though there are strengths there
too. But I am of the notion that when we're in the midst of challenge, if we dig for what we really do well, it's going to be the most genuine way of putting ourselves forward and having the courage to help yourself be heard or to get through whatever it might be. It's where you find your empowerment. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of tricky because if you look back on your swells, I would say, what do you do well when things are going well? What do you do well when what are you good at? Right. Me, humor. And we see some answers to the chat questions like gratitude, perseverance, humor. Where are those attributes when things are challenging for you? All right. Sometimes we abandon them quickly because, oh my God, it's a challenge.
Sure.
And we step down and we don't dig deep. And now we become someone we're not, or we let ourselves get rolled over, or we go into a funk because we can't get through this process, or some man is in our face. And now we think, where is the me in this? This is where you draw from your pits and your swells.
Sometimes you pull it out somehow and it makes you feel so much better.
Mm-hmm. I find that if I say to myself the word courage in my head, courage,
really?
Yeah, that it super helps. Here's at least, here's one example. Well, here's an example of how I maybe used to be. I was in a setting with two men at a conference high up in a defense industry, and it happened to be the group that I was mingling with quite a bit because I was doing some consulting work at a high level. And I'd asked them something it happened to be about mergers and acquisitions, blah, blah, blah. And it evidently was a naive question because I don't know.
Right.
And one of them, they both
stood
there and you could almost see the peacock feathers come out.
Really?
Well, no, we just don't do it that way. And they said they said something back to me in such a condescending way. All I could think of was say, oh, okay, and kind of slither off, right? Mm-hmm. Now I look back at that and I think, well, they must have thought I was just a, what do you call what somebody's just a
wallflower?
Wallflower, yeah, there you go. Today, I was at the gym and I was confronted by somebody because I was breaking a rule. Carol actually called me on my phone and I answered it. Oh. You're not supposed to be on your phone at the gym.
And somebody told you?
And she said something. She actually was a little nasty. And I composed myself, and I'd already hung up from you. I composed myself and I thought the word courage. When someone is a little nasty to you, your very first reaction is to kind of be nasty back. Right. This is what happens in pits. You get defensive or you start covering yourself. But I kept myself composed, and I kind of, in my own head, I said, I really need to be gracious about this. I really was breaking a rule. And so instead of doing like, well, she says, well, you're not supposed to be on the phone. I can't read. Instead of being nasty back, I said, you know what? I am sorry. I realize that I actually was breaking a rule. It's only the second time I've been to this gym. I apologize. And she kind of backed down a little bit. But that's the sort of composure that you have to have when you're in a challenge of a threat in some way. And you lose yourself if you don't do it. You become, how often have you lost your patience or you've lost your composure and you walk away feeling like it wasn't you at all?
Right.
Right. Yeah. And had you not been reactionary, you might have had a little grace over the situation, which is
the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice of you to actually think about.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so you get good
graceful.
at saying, oh, I didn't know that. Or, oh, I'm sorry. You get really good at those sort of statements. But some of the other strengths that we saw from the chat was self-reliance. Robin said tenacity, resilience, perseverance. My friend Lindsay said persistence, and she is, as I said, one of my most persistent role models for me. Okay. So can you see how some of those things are coming up?
I know.
And do you want to share that or do you want to go on?
Sure. No, I think this is lovely. So having strong enough personal faith to know all the tough lessons are for reasons that aren't necessarily apparent at the time, but have allowed me to be of service to others in the future. And that is really what we're talking about here is, you go through those pits, they give you a strength of your character that you can take into the future and help others with. So That, you know, that kind of nutshells
Nutshells it, and
where
part
we're
of the
gonna get.
part of the nutshell to me is not apparent at the time.
It is
What's
never
not apparent at the
yes,
time.
Yes.
I could go into the brain monologue about how the brain things happen. So we're hearing your strengths come out. They come from your past, and they are the source of your empowerment. You just have to embrace them, find out what they are, and how you can go forward with them. So I'm asking you now, what are some of the interesting and utterly insightful observations that you might have? Here are some things to look for. Here are the ways the patterns go. Listen for things like a very clear strength for you. And some of those that were in the chats, like I'm resourceful, I persevere, I use humor, I trust my instincts, I'm confident. Those are all some that we heard from the chat and from our skirt strategists. Look for a theme that sheds a light on a strength. All right, that's going to be a mantra. We're going to talk about what some of those are in a moment. Look for events or history that impresses you, good or bad. I worked with one client in the Drab to Fab interview, the one-on-one, where she was wanting to talk about her bio and really where her strengths were. And one of her events was when she first got the key to her own classroom. She'd just gotten a PhD and she'd been working for a while, but she finally gotten to the level in education where she wanted to be. And they'd given her a key to her classroom. And it was just, very routine, but to her it was so symbolic. She remembers clearly walking down the hallway with that key in her hand and opening the door. How symbolic.
Love
There
that
should be
story.
music here, I think. Look for a pattern in your style, and that, of course, will lead to a mantra as well. A humanizing event. Lisa, one of yours always sticks with me. Do you remember what that is?
My mantra?
No, a humanizing event.
Oh, when I lost my business and my home and all the people who worked for me, and I had to give up my big, beautiful home and my big, beautiful closet, and I moved into a tiny little place and my shoes didn't fit. My shoes didn't fit in the closet. And I cried.
Yeah.
I cried.
Mm-hmm. The symbolism of beautiful shoes not fitting where, a woman should have at least that in her life, right?
Right.
A tendency to brag, even if you are holding yourself back. It's a typo. Even if you hold yourself back. So I'm going to catch you on this. If you hear yourself resisting a brag, I want you to come right out with it. Like I'm great at. When I got recruited in 1988 by a national consulting firm that was well known, hugely on the East Coast in big industries and some globally, I had no idea what I was getting into. I look back on it now, and it wasn't until you and I went through some of our biographies with Robin Roffer about 4 or 5 years ago that I did the oh shit. That was huge, mm-hmm. And I never came to grips with it for probably 20 years till 20 years later. 20 years later.
We do hesitate to brag about ourselves, and as you're going through these things, you don't think about them as big as they are. Mm-hmm.
Do you think younger people are taught these days to brag more about themselves? Because I see that more in the millennial that I work with. And it's hard for me still to this day to brag, but I see it more often.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I think they are. They're given trophies for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard someone say it's a lot of confidence and not very much competence. Perhaps what pushes on me with the millennials is I love the confidence. I think it's great. But I wonder if it's at the expense. Oh, Lisa's getting more wine. I wonder if it's at the expense of them seeing what they've earned or what they still need to earn. Because, I think of those years when I was an engineer and I had 2 weeks of vacation a year. It was torture. Now I work for myself. I can take unpaid vacation anytime I want.
That is how that works.
But you have to put in the time, and when they're super, super confident, you feel like they're not going to put in the time. Maybe that's
But I do think that most women need to learn to brag quite a bit more than they already do.
I think we just found your next workshop.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, the bragging?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, then something significant you were part of, especially in hindsight.
Yeah. And especially in hindsight.
Yeah.
You sometimes don't know. That's why I encourage you to sit down and think through those chapters, because what may not have seemed significant at the time is coming into your more recent past. If you've never done this before, it could be any of your past, but what's been your more recent past that's significant that you're just now taking inventory of?
Well, and it's really helpful to do this with somebody else who can look at your past and say, wow, you consulted in the Middle East? I mean, I did that,
Yeah.
and I absolutely, I gloss over it. Yeah, I was in the Middle East for a little while. Yeah, I went there. Yeah. No, I was a consultant in the Middle East. Went there, stayed there, went back again.
Changed the world?
Changed the world completely. Well, it's going to hell in a handbasket now, but
They need you back, Carol.
they do need me, but I'm not going, I'll tell you. Learned my lesson.
So now we're starting to kind of see your stories.
Yeah.
I still don't have my story compacted in a sense of what it is. Is it just me, or do you guys look back on your past and you get it?
I'm starting to get it, I feel like.
I think after we did our bio work that we did, I started to really get it, and more of in the way that I can, in an elevator speech, say who I am. Do I get who, how I came to be all of those things? No. But that doesn't necessarily matter. It's more, wow, I did that. Mm-hmm.
Have you done any branding work over at the BioCenter? For the BioCenter itself?
Oh, for the companies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not enough. No budget.
It's kind of the parallel to a history is who are you?
Yeah.
If Carol and I struggle with that sometimes with Skirt Strategies, is getting a good definition of what the story is of
who we serve,
and I know,
and who they are, and how do we serve them better.
And I know the women that follow us, and probably many of you that are listening are like, I don't know what my story is. Well, this is a part of it. This is really
starting. Yes,
this is getting it going. So let's talk about mantra, because this will be your walk away, one of your walkaways. We're gonna have you write your PMS, your personal mantra statement. What is a mantra? Well, I'm going to tell you this probably isn't what's in all the global books about what a mantra is. We have our own definition, and characteristics of a great mantra include, Carol, give us a characteristic. A sentence or a phrase in words that you would actually use and is easy to remember. So it needs to be in your language. It's a positive statement. It doesn't focus on what you wish to avoid. I am not an idiot. A declaration of what has already been manifested or achieved by you. It's something that you can feel or something that affirms you. And so you're probably thinking, I don't get it. What is it? Well, let's give you some examples.
Katie, I wrote mine 2 years ago, and it means even more to me now, and I hadn't actually looked at it in 2 years.
Neat.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
All right.
It's cool.
All right, tell us what yours is.
Mine is from sadness to fabulousness, because I had so many years of sadness and literally clinically depressed because of the situation I found myself in. And
because you couldn't fit shoes in your closet.
I couldn't fit shoes in my closet.
Just kidding.
Couldn't afford the pretty clothes anymore. No, I mean, it was a lot more than that. I had to give up a lot to move on. And I was sad for a long time. And your workshop helped me make some steps forward. And then, I don't know, last year I literally made a commitment that I am not going to be sad anymore. I'm done with my attorneys. I'm done fighting. I don't care if the guy dies or lives. I'm moving on, and it doesn't matter what he does anymore.
Yay.
And it's so much more fun to be happy than it is to be sad.
I kind of have goosebumps. I'm not kidding. I really do. I really do. And
I'm even blogging about it. I mean, I've literally been blogging about this. How I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Not going to be sad.
You know what I like best about your mantra?
What?
Is you have not a real word in there, fabulousness.
I know.
And we use
made it up.
We use not real words all the time. There's no shame in that. There's also no shame in seeing what you stand for in something materialistic, because it's a symbol. It doesn't mean that you're not going to live if you don't have beautiful shoes or a beautiful wardrobe. It's a symbol of being there. I'll never forget my mom when I was growing up saying about my stepfather, because he first time he got a Cadillac, they were just in just wowed over. They were like, "Oh my God, we got a Cadillac!" And I remember my mom saying to me, it's not so much it's a Cadillac; it's a sign, it's a symbol for him that he's finally achieved something.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes symbols are what we need in order to give us the visual reminders. Yep.
So I remember my mantra, and I'm an advocate for the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been one. I will, in an argument, I don't care if somebody's not winning, I'm on their side.
Even if you disagree.
Even if I disagree, I will absolutely just buck them up with a good argument.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do for a living too, is I advocate for an industry, and I think they're the underdog. So
well, that's a great little assignment is to, once if you've got a feel for what your mantra is, and this list, in fact, all these charts will be available to you afterwards if you want to take this list and maybe circle a couple of them. A lot of people have trouble narrowing it down to one. They're like, don't make me narrow it down to one. That's okay. You can have, a couple, and it might be that some come and go. But if you could tie what you're doing to that mantra, in other words, go ahead and pick what you think your mantra is, then ask yourself, am I doing something that helps this mantra live and breathe? Mm-hmm. And if so, then that shows some personal alignment, very nice personal alignment professionally and personally. Okay. Nice. So as we wrap up, let's see, it's just about the top of the hour. So as we wrap up, we're going to give you all an assignment to task yourself. What is one positive thought you'd like to keep in mind as you go forward with this view of your hysterectomy?
Herstory.
Your herstory. It sounds like you've got a speech impediment. What is one thought? And so go ahead and chat those in, or email them, or send them to us later if you're joining us later. Carol, what do you think?
One positive thought. Change makes you better.
That's good. What if it's bad change?
Yeah. Eventually, if you can get through it, and if you can get to the other side,
it still
you can
does.
see the strength that it brought you. Yeah.
Learn from it.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about you?
It's more fun to be happy than it is sad.
Oh, yeah. I love that. That actually goes back to my mantra, which is humor and energy get me through everything.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes I practice inappropriate humor and people tell me to shut up. That's not appropriate. I kind of don't care.
I never think that about you. It just shows how inappropriate I am.
Oh, good. Thank you. Well, if you're in a serious conversation or divorce proceedings, actually, that's the best time to laugh.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, so Melody says hers is you can't fix crazy.
And that's
okay.
because,
it's great.
Melody, you need to go back on your medication. Well, that's good. I'm loving all the positive, and this is what I love about the feeling of Skirt Strategies is the positive influx of women pulling together.
Yeah,
women helping women, women supporting women, and talking to women about positive things. In the book Brave Transitions, I actually take a couple of conversations where I've been sitting around, not like this where we're on audio, but in a happy hour or people over to my house for a little nosh, and I listen to how different we have conversations, how completely different. And I jotted down a few of them, and they're in the book because it's almost as if that things women say. If a man were to say it, a man just wouldn't say it. We support one another, we consult with one another, we counsel, we get into, well, what if it's this? Well, it sounds to me like this. It's a lot of armchair psychology. My husband has an issue with it because it's putting him out of business, but we are really reach out to one another in a network in a way that supports it. And I just find it fascinating. It keeps me alive in a good way. So if there are any questions from the gallery, Carol is monitoring email, and we've got some chat as well if you would like to ask a question. I did have one come in early. Someone said, when things are tough and it's just something that you need to get through, I put my head down and I slog through it. I don't make it a very big deal. Is that easy for a lot of people to do, or does that mean I'm just ignoring stuff?
That's a good question.
Sometimes it's just one foot in front of the other. I've had an experience just this last weekend where I had 2 family members in the hospital at the same time, and different hospitals too. So I was one foot in front of the other, and slogging is the word for it. I just
You had a tough week.
I knew, I had to take care of myself and take care of them, and so sometimes you slog.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it's a coping mechanism.
Well, I helped you because I put a DNR on your husband's chart in the hospital. I filled in DNR.
She came to see him and she texted him.
Don't you think
DNR on your room?
Sometimes when you're slogging through something, you're actually processing it in the back of your mind, and when you're ready to deal with it, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I toy with that I think that's really where the question is coming from, is when do you push through, and when do you just when is hanging back avoiding versus when is it? There's a question I asked myself. This is where intuition comes in. And those of you that have gone through the intuition model where you've been assessed through the Q1, 2, 3, or 4, either you're highly inspirational, you're highly intuitive, you're highly organized, or you're highly strategic. And by the way, that website, if you want to get that quick assessment, it's skirtstrategies.com/assessment. When you're going through those, and I forgot what I was saying. When I'm in a state of moving myself through it. Oh, how do you know when you're avoiding it, and how do you know when you're really pushing through it?
We weren't listening to you.
Thanks, you guys. I'm going to start asking you really very critical questions.
Too much wine.
Yeah. See, that's the problem with the wine. When you're wanting to push through it versus when you're avoiding it, if you know what your style is and really whether it's something you need to jump into, I ask myself, what's the right thing to do? And somehow that intuitive in me will tell me what the answer is. It's almost like I just have to say, what do you know? What do you know is the right thing to do? And there'll be one way that says, that's not feeling right. And the other way that says, this is really what you should do. That's how I listen to it.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Any last words, Lisa?
No, this was fun. It was fun to share.
Thank you for sharing. We really do appreciate it.
It's nice of you.
And it was fun to have you in the workshop. And that was just a fabulous workshop.
Yeah, I was your hardest student.
No, you weren't.
Meltdown.
Oh my God, we had somebody.
Had a couple of meltdowns.
It was a transition, that's for sure.
Do you remember we had someone whose daughter had gone into the hospital that day?
Yeah, I
and
do.
we had someone else who said that their father had shot their mother. Do you remember
that was her story.
That was her
part of
story. There were some unbelievable, powerful stories, and they were all told with such courage. And I'm ready to go on, and it was really enlightening.
So we do workshops too.
Mm-hmm. We do.
Keep that in
We're
mind.
for sale. Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. And for those of you that are getting this later, actually for any of you, we will have it available for downloading of the charts and those very valuable handouts as well, the templates. And if you ever need us, please know that we have email support at Katie at Skirt Strategies as well as Carol at Skirt Strategies. We also do encouragement coaching or performance coaching, and you can look up that more at skirtstrategies.com/coaching. We'd love to be there with you, and please follow us as much as you can.
We have a podcast on iTunes, so download us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye.